Welcome to Couch Quarterbacks.
Hey guys, welcome to the Couch Quarterbacks. It's been a while.
It has been a minute, Stein.
We have been very busy in our personal lives, doing a lot of work and schoolwork, a lot of stuff getting done, but finally have a little bit of free time coming at you guys, and we have something important coming up on Thursday.
I was going to say, not only a little bit of free time, but a little bit of action going on in the NFL with the NFL draft on Thursday, Stein.
Yes, this is Christmas for a lot of people. You know, a lot of guys are going to get that future superstar that they're hoping for. This draft, just right off the bat, offensive heavy. Let's get that out of the way.
It's very top heavy.
Top heavy and offensive focused. There's not like that quintessential defender, like Chase Young, like there was, last year or something like that.
Yeah, that's what Stein. When I was doing some prep for this show, I was looking at it, and so a lot of people have Surtain going to the Cowboys as the first overall defensive player in the draft. I was trying to go back and see when the latest a defensive player was drafted. I went back to like the 1960s, and I couldn't find one that was later than like 6th or 7th with the first guy off the board. So if that ends up being the case where the first guy is drafted at 10th overall, it's going to be the latest.
Exactly. There's no definitive defensive like end, like a Jadeveon Clowney or something like that.
That's what, of course, with us being from Atlanta, following the Falcons, it's like, of course, the one time the Falcons have a top 5 pick, there's no true big edge rusher.
Well, this could be the first time they have a top 5 pick in the next couple of drafts. Coming out of yesterday, hot off the, today's show is going to be all about, we're going to do an entire mock draft, talk about where we think guys are going to go. The goal is to be a 32 for 32 come Thursday night.
If only it were that easy.
Usually we're pretty good at, we can probably get the top 10 correct, but, when it comes to those 20 picks, it's like guys can go anywhere. Teams will reach for certain guys. There'll always be the quintessential reach.
Yeah, so we're going to split this up into 2 different parts. So part 1 of this episode will be picks 1 through 16, and then part 2 we'll come back and we'll do picks 17 through 32. So 1 through 16, there's usually a lot more clarity in terms of who's going to get picked. The 17 through 32 is going to be kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah, you're going to see a center taken or like a nose tackle. Those are more of those picks. Like we were saying, though, these first couple picks are just offensive heavy. And, I mean, that's just the way it seems the league is going. A lot of teams are trying to get those offensive weapons because, when it's all said and done, like baseball, home runs drive revenue. Home run throws and touchdowns are going to drive revenue. Of course, defense is important.
They say defense wins championships, but when you have such a talented quarterback group, such talented wide receivers, you're going to probably see the highest tight end drafted in the history of the NFL draft this early. So.
Mediocre running backs,
Don't draft a running back in the first round. I will say there is one running back on this list. It should be pretty obvious and to what team it's going to be.
He's gotten some interesting comparisons, I will say, when we get to that.
But Stein, you want to hop in? We'll go to the first pick in the NFL draft, which belongs to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's going to be so awesome to hear that jingle, because remember last year we did watch the draft, but it was, that virtual draft, and that just was not fun.
Yeah, I think Goodell has been vaccinated, so he's going to be able to hug
it's going to be in Cleveland, of all places, which is an interesting draft spot. It's maybe they won't give the Super Bowl to northern cities, but they'll give the draft to northern, like Chicago.
I mean, it makes sense.
Indy,
the draft will
Cleveland.
Be indoors. So
yeah, exactly.
It was supposed to be in Chicago last year, and they were supposed to have like the...
No, that was Vegas.
Vegas. That's what it was, Vegas.
So I assume Vegas will be eventually because I want to see the boats. Yeah,
I was going to say, the draftee travel.
They could do boats for Chicago too, though. I'm not sure how many people are going to be attending. I know a few players on this list will be there.
I think I saw it was 58 players in total that are going to be attending.
Well, the first person in the draft will not be attending, and pretty much is probably the most obvious draft pick since...
It's Zach... No.
The most obvious draft pick since I guess Andrew Luck, and a lot of people are saying the most talented draft quarterback prospect, and that of course is the long-haired guy himself, Trevor Lawrence. already getting wedding gifts from Jacksonville fans. I don't know if you saw that.
Really? I did
Yes.
not see that.
Yes, already like they put out the gift registry or whatever. I think he just got married.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks ago.
I mean, good luck to him and his wife.
I saw where
she's set for life, and
I saw that they were already pledging to donate to some charities in the Jacksonville area. So it's pretty much a done deal. Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars.
I'm sure he's already bought a house in Jacksonville or everything. The guy, he's been on our radar for a while because we are in Georgia, coming out of Cartersville High School.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing record at Cartersville. Was actually in the same region as our high school for a little bit. I don't think they ever played each other, but we were always. We graduated when he was still playing, but we always kind of kept our eye on him.
That's what, between high school and college time, an 86-4 record as a starter. Got the national championships with Cartersville. Got one with Clemson as well. So it's a guy with an absolutely stellar record.
Yeah.
He's got the height. He's got the throwing. He's got the athleticism for a guy that's 6'6". And he's just proven himself throughout his career with being in those big games, the national championships, just all throughout high school and college.
Yeah, just definitely a blue chip, A+ kind of pick. I mean, this is a guy who can contribute from day one, and that he's being expected to. There's not going to be any competition at all in Jacksonville. One thing I do want to focus on, his arm is good, but he's also a good runner too. People do not realize how good of a runner he is. He's not a like ultimate dual threat quarterback, but he definitely can kill you with his legs.
He's 6'6". I mean, his strides are like 5 yards long. So you get him in a read option game. They have James Robinson there, so could have a successful run game. They're talking about Jacksonville maybe getting ETN with the first pick in round 2. So
putting the Clemson boys together.
They're trying to get an offense together in Jacksonville, and it's gonna be funny because, like I mentioned, just 4 losses since high school as a starter. He's gonna have more losses in his first year in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he's definitely, the team still needs defensive pieces, and I still think they need a big target. They have some decent receivers kind of sprinkled in, but they're still gonna need that quintessential receiver, and they'll probably draft a receiver in there too.
There's a reason why they were a 1-15 team last season.
Yeah.
So.
Offensive line also as well is going to need some help, though it's not like one of the worst. So I hate to say it, but the first pick's pretty boring. So we can get to more exciting picks.
Yeah, Jacksonville does have a pick later on in the first round. So in part 2, we'll be able to talk about their 25th pick.
Yeah, their other needs, areas of need. The number 2 pick.
Again, not a surprise.
Which was not going to be a surprise. I mean, was going to be a surprise, but then the Jets traded Sam Darnold to the Panthers. So that gives them complete vacancy for quarterback, and all eyes are pointing towards Zach Wilson at that number 2 pick, the quarterback out of BYU. A very interesting guy.
Yeah, when I'm looking at his tape, a lot of people are comparing him to Johnny Manziel, which in college it's a great comparison, but when you get to the NFL side, I don't know if it's exactly the stellar comparison.
He's coming from BYU, so he's not a party guy like Manziel.
But in terms of his play on the field, they say he's a gunslinger. He can really make something out of nothing, so when any sort of pressure going outside the pocket, you saw during his pro day just him rolling out, going against the grain to his left, and then just throwing an absolute bomb down the field. So just really able to make something out of nothing. And then, in my belief, I think you're going to see a lot of turnovers from him because of that, trying to do different things and audible throughout the play. I think he's going to make some mistakes, throw some interceptions in his first year. The Jets are still the Jets, so...
Yeah, I mean, we highlighted their top needs as quarterback, running back, and, without a leading running back, they're not going to have something that he can, rely upon when he's going to be overworked and when he's having those struggles, because there could very well be times where he goes like 6 out of like 18 passing, and it's like, he's definitely struggling to throw the ball. They're also missing some stuff on the offensive line as well. So, I mean, that poor guy is going to get...
I was going to say, it's not what you're looking for when you're a quarterback, when they need offensive line pieces.
I do honestly I hate to use this comparison, but I see a lot of Taysom Hill in him. I know he's not like, Hill's a lot like Tebow, and he's not, I guess I see the comparison mostly from BYU, kind of a smaller
Hill
guy.
Hill is a much bigger guy since he's lines up at tight end, lines up at fullback for the Saints.
Yeah.
I think Zach Wilson's only about 6 foot, maybe 6'1",
Yeah.
190 pounds, 180 pounds, so a much smaller guy, but once again, kind of like Trevor Lawrence, you're still going to see the growing pains with him, but he's
going to have a better coach, though. If this was Wilson and Gase combination, I would just go ahead and write the Jets off as taking having the first pick in next year's draft and taking Sam Howell.
Able to get the new coach in Robert Saleh. So just a solid piece where you can hopefully get your franchise quarterback and start on those building blocks.
Of all the top tier quarterbacks, I say Wilson is probably the most risky, in my opinion.
It's either Wilson or Lance for sure.
Yeah.
Because with Lance, he sat out last season. Not a whole lot of tape on him. He's
also very boomer. He's probably the most boomer bust. Whereas Lawrence, Jones, and Fields, you kind of have more fleshed out college resumes. Moving on to number 3
here's where it gets interesting, Stein.
Yes. So a lot of moving parts this past month with the 49ers trading up from Miami, who traded down. Miami's all over the place right now.
Yeah, so Miami got that number 3 overall pick from the Texans
from the Laramie Tunsil trade. Yep.
Just a huge win for Miami as they had a good team last season. So we're set up with the number 3 spot. They trade back to the number 12 spot.
Don't necessarily need the quarterback, so that's why.
Yeah, San Fran moves from number 12 up to number 3. They traded their 12 pick this year and also 2 more first round picks. So there was obviously something when they made that trade last month that they had their eyes set on one of these quarterbacks, and that's been the big debate over this past month or so. Yeah, we've been hearing
a lot of noise out of the 49ers camp as to where they want to go with their quarterback. Jimmy G he got him to a Super Bowl, but that wasn't him that got him to the Super Bowl. It was the running game, and it was Shanahan and their defense.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy has never played a full season, I don't think, with the Niners. He's just been injured constantly. Just, he needs to go back, be a backup on the Patriots, like everyone wants him to be.
But that's what Ian Rappaport and Peter King have been reported on Monday that it's pretty much between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. They said that Justin Fields, even though they looked at him a lot, looked at his pro day, everything like that, they're hearing reports saying that it's going to be between Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Mac Jones has been the front runner just about this whole time, and so right now with our mock draft, I've got the San Francisco 49ers picking Mac Jones out of Alabama.
Yeah, and I agree with that pick. I think that Mac Jones is probably the most prototypical pocket passer of these guys. He doesn't have much leg game. A little bit similar to Joe Burrow, last year had a great complement of weapons around him. So it will be interesting to see how he performs in San Fran with not as many weapons.
That's what I would say the comparison to Burrow, somewhat in terms of the play, but a lot in terms of how they weren't heavily thought of as big time quarterback prospects going into the NFL draft. Where remember Joe Burrow at the beginning of last season was seen as a day 3 guy, even undrafted, and then able to go ahead and win the Heisman Trophy, national championship, become the number 1 overall pick. Kind of the same thing for Mac Jones. I don't think anyone saw him as a big time NFL QB prospect going into the season. Ends up helping Alabama get that national championship, and he's really shot his stock upward. We thought he was going to be a late first-round pick, maybe a mid-first-round pick, but with the San Francisco trade, it seems like they really like him there. It looks like he's going to be the number 3 overall pick.
Yeah, and he's a like I said, prototypical pocket passer. He's not going to be the guy who's going to kill you with his feet, and that's probably not what they're looking for with that Kyle Shanahan offense. And you could honestly look at this as a Matt Ryan-esque, because Matt Ryan, the guy is not going to kill you with his feet. That's that Shanahan offense.
That's one of the big reasons why people have doubt with them taking Mac Jones. They feel like Justin Fields or Trey Lance would be a better fit for that offense, but to me, if it's between Mac Jones and Trey Lance, like the reporting, Lance seems like more of a guy that's going to be a project, a team that isn't very successful right now, is kind of looking more long term than short term. I think San Fran, even though they had a down season last season, is looking to try and get back into the Super Bowl, make a deep playoff run, and I think Mac Jones will help them do that in the more immediate future than Trey Lance.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our hometown team, number 4, the Atlanta Falcons, taking that 4th selection. They say Atlanta probably has the most paths that they can go, because we honestly could go in so many different directions, and we have so many needs.
Yeah, that's what, when you look at the 49ers, you don't know who they're going to pick, but you know it's going to be a quarterback. When you look at the Falcons, it's like, are they going to take one of the quarterbacks that San Fran doesn't take? Are they going to end up going with Kyle Pitts? Are they going to go Jamar Chase? Could they trade back in the draft? Like you said, there's so many different directions that the Falcons really hold the key to how the rest of the draft goes with what they do with that 4th pick.
Yeah.
And as of right now, so the way that we mock this, we're trying to predict what will actually happen. Not as much what we think is going to happen, but what will actually happen. So... Yeah. With the 4th overall pick, we've got the Atlanta Falcons taking Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida. Now, I think Stein, and you can say what you want about this, but I've been saying it for a long time. I think the Falcons should trade back, either trade with Denver at 19, trade back with New England at 15 later on in the first round, just build up some of those picks, because like you said, there's so many positional needs for the Falcons where if you want to trade back at 9, you might still be able to get a quarterback. You could get Patrick Surtain. There's a lot of different directions that you could go, and you can just keep building pieces for guys that you draft.
Yeah. No matter, I can say the one thing for sure, no matter who the Falcons pick, people are going to be pissed. You know, the Falcons could pick, freaking Tom Brady, and the fans would still be pissed. That's just how it goes.
A lot of people want Justin Fields because he was the Georgia boy, went to the University of Georgia before transferring to Ohio State.
I really do. I would not be upset with Pitts. I like Kyle Pitts and the fact that he kind of could be the next Tony Gonzalez for this team, because we've seen what Matt can do with the Tony Gonzalez. Also, there's talks of Julio being, traded or something, so we still need a number 1 threat for, Calvin is turning into a good threat, but, complementing him with Pitts.
See, that just kind of more puts some more smoke, I guess, in the way of, could they go with a Jamar Chase now if they're trying to dangle Julio? Yes, like you said, you have a Calvin Ridley, so do you want to get another number 2 receiver to pair with him?
A lot of teams are interested in that 4th pick because they can get the 4th best quarterback, which in a lot of people's eyes is either Fields or Lance. So, I've heard Dallas loves Pitts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jerry Jones is apparently infatuated with him.
Yeah,
so.
And Dallas has never been a team to shy away from, showing off what they can do in terms of their wallet and their capital. So, could we see Dallas, trade up to that spot? Denver, you said at 9, definitely needs a quarterback. New England, a lot of people say Fields in New England would be a dream. Washington and Chicago kind of on the outside looking in, as they were 2 playoff teams, funny enough.
I was going to say, they're at 19 and 20 in the draft, so for them to move from there all the way up to number 4, about 15 picks, that's going to take a king's ransom for them to move all the way up there. At least the Falcons should be asking for a king's ransom.
Like we were saying, though, the Falcons, I do think, could use another cornerback. They could use an edge rusher, but there's not a definitive, Surtain is good. There's the kid from Virginia Tech who's good. South Carolina guy as well, in terms of corners. Mm-hmm. But edge rushers, not a lot, really. Micah Parsons is a linebacker.
Yeah, you're talking about Kwity Paye, Jalen Phillips, Greg Russo.
Yeah, the guy from
Miami.
Yeah.
The guy from Penn State, Jason Owe. So,
and there's a Notre Dame guy too. I forgot his name.
But yeah, so those are all guys that they're going to be coming off the boards in the late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, and some of them might even fall to day 2. So it's just the Falcons, I think. Fano's in a good position because this is not like he has a lot of places he can go, and I think they would be successful. I don't think the Falcons are going to be competing for a Super Bowl next year. Mm-hmm. I do think that they can start building for the Super Bowl within the next 5 years. I think they're not really in a rebuild, but they technically, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They're not like officially in a rebuild because I think with Matt Ryan and Julio, they'll still be competitive, but they'll quietly be building, up that base. And that's what I think ultimately they should do is, I agree with you, is trade back and accumulate those second round guys and that late, first round pick and ultimately get that edge rusher, that linebacker that they so need to replace Beasley and McKinley, guys that they should have got production out of and never did.
The other first round bust. That's what some people for the Falcons don't even want to try and draft an edge rusher in the first round just because of the lack of success that they've seen from those edge rushers in recent history.
It just seems like that position is cursed. Going on to number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals, and I would say there's kind of a 2 option decision here.
Yeah, it's really a coin flip between 2 guys.
Do you take a receiver and help, do you reunite that Burrow-Jamar Chase connection, or do you protect Burrow? And ultimately, I think we're going to be trying to protect Burrow. He got that Clemson guy last year. T. Higgins. They did lose AJ Green, but I still think this draft is so deep with receivers that they can get a guy day 2 or something.
Yeah, they can use one of their second round picks, get another receiver, but we got them taking Penei Sewell out of the University of Oregon. Like you were mentioning, Stein, just protecting Joe Burrow. You saw that scar that he had on his knee.
It looks similar to mine. It's bigger than mine.
When they were doing the video of the jersey reveal.
Yeah.
So
Bengals do drop new jerseys. Quick opinions on those?
Very, very modest. There's nothing flashy about them. They're very similar to what their old jerseys were.
I'm not sure if the font's the same, but as their last jerseys, but it looks kind of similar to like a Bears jersey a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of the stuff is the same. Maybe change some colors here and there on like the pads. And
that just made me think of something. We'll talk about it in a future show, but the NFL new numbering rule.
Yes,
we'll have to talk about that in the future.
Yeah, some of the guys that are changing their.
Yeah, because I was just thinking about just Joe Burrow's number 9, and I was thinking like what was, we already had some guys changing up, but anyways, Penei Sewell, generational talent at tackle, gonna be the blindside blocker for Joe Burrow. Hopefully he'll be ready for game 1. We'll see.
That's what one of the knocks on Sewell is, just with him not, once again, another guy opted out in 2020, so don't have recent tape on him, hasn't faced live football in close to 2 years. So,
but the fact he can still remain at number the best overall line prospect, without even combining or having film from last year, it speaks volumes to his ability.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But once again, we think protection for Burrow over getting him another weapon in the top 5. But got them taking Penei Sewell.
Would not be upset though if they took Chase, but people would be like, all right, he needs some kind of help. Number 6, the Miami Dolphins have traded. Philly originally owned that spot, but they traded with Philly to move up.
Yeah, so it was literally in that same day when they traded from 3 to 12. Then they made the trade with Philly, that 12 pick to move back into the top 10 to number 6 overall pick. They traded I think it was one of their first rounders, so they keep the 2 Stan Fran ones, trade one of theirs from 2022. But they have the number 6 overall pick, and we've got them taking the guy that we just mentioned, Jamar Chase, wide receiver out of LSU.
Yeah, LSU receivers, are just. It's been WRU for the past 2-3 years, and Jamar Chase, like Jarvis Landry going from LSU to Miami just sounds he'll look good in that jersey. I'll say that.
Yeah, definitely, and he'll join what turns out to be a pretty solid receiving core for Tua next season, as they've got Devontae Parker. They signed Will Fuller to that 1-year deal. They already had Preston Williams, another young guy for them, and then adding Jamar Chase to that. So they mentioned Tua is now going to be their guy at quarterback. They're going to try him out, see how he does. One of the best ways for Tua to have success is to get weapons around him to pass the ball to. Yeah. And I think Jamar Chase would be a great addition to this Miami team that is looking to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Gosh, looking at all these offensive guys, it's going to be crazy. The first round of fantasy, for keeper leagues. Another offensive guy going at number 7, the Lions, definitely on the way down. Even if this draft is not going to help them, and you got them taking Devontae Smith, probably the quintessential number 2 best receiver, Heisman winner from last year.
Yeah, that's what this is potentially a spot where if those teams that Justin Fields, Trey Lance still on the board, some of those teams like New England, like Denver could try and jump either up or into the top 10 and take this pick from the Lions. the Lions, kind of similar to the Falcons, where they just need a lot of different pieces, a lot of different positions, so they're going to try and stack up on draft picks. But if they stay put at the number 7 pick, I think it's going to be either one of the Alabama receivers between Smith and Waddle, or they love Micah Parsons as well. So I think it's going to be between those two position groups. I got him taking Devontae Smith. A lot of concerns recently coming out with his latest measurements. He was reported at Alabama being 6'1", 175, but when he got measured, I think Sports Illustrated reported it, he was actually barely over 6 foot and only 166 pounds. So some people are kind of taking concern to that. I'm not too worried about it because it's like, well, if he's 6 foot, 166 pounds, he was probably playing at about that weight last season, maybe a little bit heavier, a little bit of fluctuation between it. But you saw all the things he did with Alabama last season, winning the Heisman, won the Biletnikoff with the best wide receiver, was like the AP player
made
of
some of the most
year.
Amazing catches I've seen over great talent in the SEC defenses. It's funny because you shouldn't be surprised that a team is a team is trying to make their guys bigger.
It happens all the time. In the NBA, it happens unless you're Kevin Durant, of course. But in the NBA, NFL, you're always trying to report the guys bigger. I don't think it's too much of a concern. Right now, the top 2 receivers for the Lions are Rashad Perriman and Tyrell Williams, 2 guys that haven't even been on the team yet, taking a snap for them. So, like I said, the Lions need a lot of different stuff. But if they stay at the number 7 pick, I've got them grabbing a wide receiver and a weapon for Jared Goff.
Waddle could be a pick here, or as Andrew said, Parsons as well.
I've also heard quarterback that even though they've got Jared Goff to a lot of money, they don't think he's the future there. They don't have a lot invested into him, so could be a quarterback there.
Yeah, honestly, the Lions are in no position to compete for the next couple of years, so they're really just going to have to. This draft is mostly just to start building, start their rebuild.
Exactly, Stein.
Moving on to number 8 is the Panthers.
This is going to be
acquired Sam Darnold, so quarterback is a little bit interesting here.
Yeah, so before they made that trade for Sam Darnold, Stein, Justin Fields to Carolina was like the locked and loaded at number 8.
Yeah.
Once they made the trade, they're like, oh, they're not going to go for a quarterback anymore. But once again, they don't have that much invested into Darnold, even though they made that trade. So he's got his 5th-year option that the deadline to exercise is May 3rd. They're probably not going to make their decision until after the draft.
Makes sense.
But if they decline that option, they only have him for 1 season. So I could totally see them still going after a quarterback, grab Justin Fields, Sam Darnold starts the first half of the season, and then Fields gets the second half of the season, and then Sam Darnold's a free agent, and he goes wherever he wants to.
He rides out the sunset,
He finds his backup job somewhere
Exactly.
else.
The guy who was literally a first-round pick from a few years ago.
Top 3 pick.
That's just how it happens, and I kind of saw that. I never thought Darnold was going to be good, just like I never thought Daniel Jones will be good.
I'm a fan of Sam Darnold. I like the move of him to Carolina, getting out of New York, gets the better coaching staff, better weapons around him. So it hates me to put this with Justin Fields going there, but it just seems like something where, like I said, they don't have to sign him to that 5th-year option. They could only have him for 1 season. So it makes sense for them. If they're not in love with Darnold, then they get who they think could be the franchise quarterback.
Let's talk about the actual pick itself and Justin Fields. Yeah. Fields, there has been some knocks on him, and remember after that semifinal game, some people were saying maybe the Jaguars should take him. Yeah. Well, the biggest knock on Fields is his vision and his reads. He's a very first read kind of guy, and if the first read's not there, he just takes off.
Yeah.
It works in college, but
that's what he was seen probably halfway through the college season as the second best quarterback behind Lawrence, and then Zach Wilson kind of rose up on the boards and became the second best quarterback. After the semifinal game, it was kind of like, he might be the second best quarterback, but it seems like he's kind of sitting there as he's going to be the 4th quarterback off the board, in my opinion. So I see a lot of Dak Prescott in him. I think that's a lot of comparison that he's been getting. He's a pocket passer, but he has the ability to use his legs when he needs to. So once again, I think with Carolina, with what they're trying to do long term, I think Justin Fields getting the quarterback, if they're not fully committed to Sam Darnold, would make sense.
He needs to definitely fix his vision. That's his first part. But Justin Fields to the Panthers, kind of it's a good fit, and we'll see what happens, especially if he can be under Darnold. That's a good fit for them. Number 9, the Denver Broncos, who I still don't think they should be out on Locke, but that's just me.
I know you're a big Locke fan.
Yeah.
So we've got them drafting Trey Lance, the last of the Big Five quarterbacks off the board from North Dakota State. Once again, with the Broncos, it's kind of a toss-up whether they go quarterback or not. They're a very popular team that people have been talking about to trade up to try and get one of these quarterbacks. They might not be able to sit at the 9 pick and still end up getting a quarterback. Depends on what other teams do trading into the top 10. But me personally, I was high on Drew Lock before going into this past season, saw what he did, and it brings up a lot of concern for me with his long-term future as a starting quarterback.
Sophomore slump. It's just a sophomore slump, and maybe they do what we just talked about the Panthers. Maybe they have Locke start and Lance, backing up, and if Locke can, hold it down, maybe they could use either one as some trade bait or something.
We already mentioned Lance is going to be the biggest project out of all these quarterbacks because they say he's got amazing football IQ, does head and shoulders above his work in the film room, just recognizing stuff on tape. But the inexperience is going to be his biggest downfall, playing in just the one game this past season.
Only 20 years old.
Yeah, he's 20 years old, only had 318 pass attempts in college, so it's going to be a matter of him just getting those reps on the practice field, getting those reps in games when he's able to get out there on the field.
He definitely has a quarterback name, though. Trey Lance,
oh, yeah.
that is a quarterback's name.
Yeah. And that's what, with the Broncos, they had the 5th fewest points per game last season, so they're definitely going to look to upgrade that offense, and I think there's no better way to do that than to get him another signal caller.
Yeah, I mean, that is a choice. Running back could also be a choice, too, if certain Najee Harris is available. But, I mean, he probably will be available, but
he'll definitely
you wouldn't want to pass up a quarterback. I think their defense is pretty good. They might trying to draft their Von Miller replacement, though, so Parsons could
I would
also...
say Micah Parsons has been another name where if they don't go in the quarterback direction that they end up grabbing him, so...
Yeah. So moving down to the Dallas Cowboys, and this is probably one of those picks that I can guarantee will happen if the order currently stays as it is, and that's Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, that's what, once again, it's been kind of the consensus that even though Jerry loves him some Kyle Pitts, that they're probably not going to go trade up into the top 5 to go and get him. They'll stay at the number 10 pick, and they get the top corner and the first defensive player off the board in this draft with Surtain. Elite physical ability, prototypical athleticism. The Cowboys need help with their defense. The 5th most points per game allowed last season. A
Dan Quinn led defense now.
A couple of guys from Dan Quinn's old defense of the Falcons there now.
Joining up, and Keanu Neal, Patrick Surtain to Alabama. I mean to Dallas makes sense. He is that pick is available though. Dallas, if they do want that 4th pick for Pitts, just give us that 10th and maybe 3 second rounder. I mean, I don't know how they have 3 second rounders.
Just grab a bunch of first rounders for the future.
Yeah, let's just stack up. For the future.
But that's what a lot of people have Surtain teaming back up with his old teammate with Trevon Diggs in that Cowboys secondary.
Yeah, that just definitely just makes sense there. Moving on to the New York Giants.
This is a kind of questionable pick. There's a couple different directions. I think this was one of the picks where when I started off the mock draft, I had one guy. When I updated it, I had a different guy, and then when I updated it again, then I changed it one more time. But right now, I've got them taking Micah Parsons out of Penn State. They could use some edge help, but once again, we talked about how weak this edge class is, so unless they trade down with their pick, then I don't think they're going to get an edge guy.
Could use that offensive line help potentially, too, as well.
Yeah, Rashawn Slater will still be on the board at this point, so could go after him.
They need help at all 3 offensive line positions. When you think about the Giants' needs over the past years, it's definitely been receiver. They tried to address that with adding Kenny Golladay.
Yeah,
but
some people
how much does Golladay add?
Some people still have Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle going to the Giants. I think with the addition of Golladay, he's going to be signed through 2024. Sterling Shepard through 2023. Darius Slayton through 2022. I just don't see a reason for them to go after another wide receiver. So that's why I've got them getting Parsons. Apparently, Gettleman loves Parsons. So if the GM likes a guy, it seems like a good inclination that could be the direction that they're going. I just don't see how you can pass up on a guy like Parsons. another guy that sat out in 2020, but just has great physical ability. A little undersized for a linebacker, but has that sideline to sideline speed.
Yeah, the Giants are in a better position. They don't have a lot of needs. I mean, Daniel Jones, they're hoping can have he's a decent guy, a decent quarterback, and then obviously Saquon coming back. Got a good tight end weapon in Ingram, and definitely the receiving core is pretty good. So I mean, they kind of have a best available type attitude going here, and with our picks thus far, the best guy available would probably be Micah Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to number 12 is going to be the Eagles, taking that Miami pick. So the Eagles going to be at 12, and we have them taking J.C. Horn, the cornerback out of South Carolina, touted as probably the second best cornerback in the class, if not the third best. Actually, I've heard in some measures.
It was really Surtain and Caleb Farley, the guy out of Virginia Tech, were viewed as the top two corners. But recently, there's been a lot of injury concerns just with the injury history of Caleb Farley.
Yeah, Farley's back is like no one knows.
Yeah, he's been falling down some draft boards. J.C. Horn obviously rising up the draft boards. The Eagles, another team that could go after a quarterback. We know their recent history with trying to get weapons for Carson Wentz when he was with the Eagles, not having the 500-yard receivers. They drafted Jalen Reagor and two other wide receivers in last year's draft, so I just don't see them going in the direction of getting Jalen Waddle again.
They still don't have like a good receiver. It's like Rager's not that good. They just need to draft an LSU receiver if they can.
They should have stayed at the 6th pick. They would have had Jamar Chase.
Where's Terrace Marshall,
Yeah, so...
Terrace Marshall, excuse me.
But I've got them going in a different direction from the wide receiver position. They could use some help in the secondary. They do have Darius Slay, but he's 30 years old.
Yeah, Jalen Mills is done.
I would say didn't play great last season, so... the Eagles, another team from the NFC East that just struggled defensively. I think J.C. Horn would be a nice addition.
I like to think of the Eagles and like the Lions kind of in similar boats. It's like they have like a quarterback that they'll be fine with, but there's a lot of other pieces that need to be fixed.
Yeah, and the Eagles are in a tough cap situation also. We talked about them in previous episodes where they're kind of in a worse situation from the Falcons, where they're kind of an aging team, have a lot of money tied into some veterans, and are kind of on the edge of that plateau, about to fall into the abyss.
Number 13 is the Chargers, and this is a team in a good position. They don't need any weapons. They don't need the quarterback.
Did you see on Twitter where it was either Twitter or Instagram, where the graphics team and the social media team put out a post saying that they had traded from the 13 pick to the 11 pick with the Giants. It was they were trading the 13 pick and then I think like a third or fourth round pick, and then they took it down immediately, and the trade never got reported. So
no, I didn't. Maybe they know something. They probably know something we don't know.
Yeah, so I guess it was something that they were discussing that someone said, "Oh yeah, they accepted this," but to our knowledge, as of right now, with us filming this on Tuesday, there's no trade that has occurred, so they're staying at number 13. And I think they're going to get some help, get some protection for Justin Herbert, draft Rashawn Slater, the offensive tackle out of Northwestern.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, they have no shortage of weapons. They don't need weapons for Herbert. They need protection, and they could use just maybe a little bit help up front on defense. Defensive secondary is good. Maybe linebacker too, if that's available. Really like Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, slated as the... make a pun there. As the second best offensive line prospect, obviously behind Sewell. So,
like I said, they're hoping that he ends up falling to them. We mentioned Detroit could be looking for an offensive lineman. The Giants at 11 could be looking for offensive line help. So if he's able to get there,
Big Ten offensive lineman just makes sense.
Yeah, he's listed as an offensive tackle, but could move into guard. There's a couple of guys here, Stein. I thought it was funny that they said that they're offensive tackles, but they could move to guard because they have short arms. So I guess the short arms are better for the interior. You don't want guys with short arms on the outside. They can't reach those edge rushers going around. But he's one of a couple guys that they said could move into a guard position because of short arms. But either way, Slater to the Chargers, protection for Justin Herbert is a great move for the Chargers.
Makes sense. Moving on to number 14, the Minnesota Vikings. A team that was up and down last year. I was
going to say, we're getting to these teams that were all middle of the pack, just missing out on the playoffs. Like the Vikings, I think, were either 7-9 or 8-8 last season.
Yeah, had some embarrassing losses, but then some good wins. So it's kind of like, what are they doing? Offensively, I think they're fine. They have weapons. They got the best young receiver in JJ.
They had arguably the best running back in the league last season with Dalvin.
Cousins is still a serviceable starter. Offensive line, obviously, since Dalvin had a good year, the offensive line isn't that bad. Maybe could use a guy or two just to bolster. But I guess the name of the game for them is going to be their defense. Trying to fix their defense. Losing Danielle Hunter, even going back to Everson Griffin, just losing all these guys that they used to have.
Yeah, I see them either going after the offensive line, fixing up the offensive line, or they're either going to take an edge guy or a guy in the secondary. So with my pick, I've got them taking Elijah Vera Tucker, the guard out of USC, just shoring up the offensive line because Cousins was sacked 39 times last season, which was sixth most by any quarterback in the league in 2020. Like I said, could also go edge. A lot of people have Jalen Phillips, a dude from Miami, being the first edge guy off the board.
Or Rousseau could be there too. Yeah.
And then they could also go quarterback if Horn's still available. If they want to go Caleb Farley. So there's a couple different directions that the Vikings could go just to help out some positional needs. But I think offensive line is going to be a big need for them in the first round.
They could definitely bolster the offensive line, and they could probably be grooming that offense for a new quarterback down the road because I don't think Cousins is the long-term.
Yeah, I think that the Vikings are one of those teams that either day 2 or day 3 are going to use on a quarterback, one of their later picks.
Yeah, number 15, y'all, we have the New England Patriots, and they're going to be probably looking at, they were big spenders in the offseason.
Yeah, we talked about all the moves they made in free agency.
Yeah, still looking, and we just had the announcement of Julian Edelman's retiring.
Yep.
Recently, so Edelman, that slot is wide open. Jalen Waddle could fit that slot, as could other receivers, but Waddle is the best receiver available.
Yeah, so that's what we got. Jalen Waddle out of Alabama going to the Patriots at 15. We've mentioned that the Patriots, Bill Belichick never trading on draft day, but if they end up going into the top 10, obviously going to go after one of those quarterbacks. If they stay put at 15, none of those quarterbacks are going to be available. They could get a cornerback if they want to go after one of those, but I've got them helping out with just that pedestrian offense that they had last season, getting Cam Newton as many targets as they can. They signed Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, not flashy signings, so being able to draft another wide receiver. You mentioned the Julian Edelman replacement. You can put Waddle anywhere on the field. He's going to be a guy used in special teams as well.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a nice...
Plus, some of their defensive guys who sat out last year are coming back, so the defensive needs aren't as bad as they were. And, Belichick's always going to have a strong defense. It's just trying to get that offense back to where it once was.
Yeah, so it's either going to be Waddle, Devontae Smith, whichever of the Alabama receivers is still on the board, if they're on the board. But I see the Patriots going after one of those two.
I mean, Smith makes more sense because Edelman, more comparable to Edelman in terms of, size. But Waddle could be that, that Jamar Chase, that Justin Jefferson, new style receiver that's just good at everything.
Yeah, it definitely depends on these teams like Detroit, like the Giants, who they view as the second overall wide receiver in the draft, and if they want to go after wide receiver compared to some of these other positions.
So the last pick in our part 1, correct? I'm just trying to do the mental math here. My mind has been mush, y'all. I mean, I've been
the grad student
balls
finals
to the wall in finals and final projects and papers. And I just can't wait till Thursday when we hear the jingle,
Hey, I was gonna say it's gotta feel good for you that the last thing due for you is on Thursday.
It's gonna and I have a presentation. I'll be wearing a suit. I'll be coming home and we'll be getting wings and pizza and beer and watching it on. We'll probably have like a TV in the laptop set up playing the show while we watch the draft.
Oh, it'll be a fun time. And like the draft is so nice because you had that big rush of free agency where you had all the NFL topics and everything. That's when we were doing a lot of the podcasts. But we've had kind of the lull period because there hasn't been much going on in the NFL.
Really not.
And this is really the spark that gets you in the middle of the offseason, that gets you back interested in football.
Gets us back going. And the next show that we will do will be a draft recap, and we'll talk about who fits where and the surprises and reaches and all that fun stuff.
But it gives us that little taste until we get back into the training camps and everything, getting closer to fall.
Let's finish up with a team on the rise in the Cardinals, a team that had a lot of improvement last year. Kyler Murray is good, got some decent receivers.
Breaking news, Kyler Murray is good.
Got D-Hop. Got the running back, that they want. The guy that they did lose was Pat Pete. And that's what we have them going after, is that Caleb Fairley or maybe one of those other cornerbacks with Farley as our or Farley, yeah.
Like Chris Farley.
Taken as their Pat Pete replacement. Guy has just been a gamble though with terms of injuries.
Yeah, so right now he had 2 back surgeries, a torn ACL. He opted out of 2020, and he was a quarterback in high school. So a guy that doesn't have too much experience at the cornerback position. He's had the injury history, so that's why, like we mentioned, he was viewed as the second best corner behind Surtain, falling on some people's draft boards. J.C. Horn has kind of surpassed him. In our mock draft, we've got Horn off the board before the Cardinals pick at 16. But they'll still go after that positional need at the cornerback position.
Yeah.
And they'll get Caleb Farley, like you mentioned, to replace Patrick Peterson in that secondary.
Yeah, for sure. That's just an obvious, what they're going to have to fill that need pretty quickly. And, they don't need to get any weapons or anything for Kenneth. For our boy Kenneth. Kyler Murray.
All right, guys. So that was picks 1 through 16 of the mock draft. That's going to do it for part 1. We'll have the other video with part 2. That'll be picks 17 through 32, finishing out this first round of the mock draft. But that's going to do it for the first one. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Couch Quarterbacks for any sort of updates on when we're posting. Might have some draft day stuff of putting up on the story some of the surprising picks that could go on during the first round. But be sure to follow us at The Couch Quarterbacks. That's going to do it for part 1 of episode number 6. We will see you guys in part 2.